So let's get over to the defense, guys, and this one is not going to be as long, and for a host of reasons, but really a big reason why is because with the Notre Dame defense, it's just, for the most part, guys, it's just keep doing what you're doing. It is a big part of what this defense has done. There's some things they need to clean up, but it's more so, okay, everybody has stuff to clean up early in the season. This is self-scouting. Okay, we're pretty good here, we're pretty good there. We're good here, but we're not great there. Let's get a little bit better at that. And it's going to be about adjusting those. Trevor, you had an article up today about the Notre Dame defense, and you look at the pass defense, you're like, wow, they're really good there. They're really good there. Oh, this randomly 64th in yards allowed per completion because you've given up a couple big plays. And then you look at it and you study, you're like, okay, well, yeah, well, like 52 of those yards came against your backups against Purdue, and another big play came against your backups. A bunch of chunk of those big, couple big plays against Louisville came, or some of those yards came on when you were out of your base defense because you were more in a, let them kind of complete some ball. I mean, there's a lot of things you can look at, but there's some areas to clean up. So we'll find out overall what they've done to kind of shore up some of those things. But for the most part, guys, it's just keep doing what you're doing. There are a couple areas that I think are key, and a couple of them are just basics. This is what you do against an inferior opponent. But there is one key, in my opinion, guys, that I think is very important for this game, and it's something that could allow Stanford to stay in this game. And that really is just, you got to contain Ashton Daniels as a runner. Because when he gets going, and Ryan, I'll kick this to you because you and I have talked a lot about this. We talked about it last year. We talked about it. You and I talked about it this week. Trevor, you and I talked about it during the show this week. I really like Troy Taylor as an offensive coach. And they do so many different things that I have to imagine. I've only played linebacker one game in my career, Ryan, and that's because we played a team that went double tight, double wing, triple option, right? So nice. Playing cornerback was irrelevant for me in that game. You know what I mean? Like, there was no need. So I moved inside, played linebacker. That's it for me playing inside. Everything else I did was on defense was playing outside. But I got to imagine that when you watch all the different backfield, I mean, they're running just straight read zone. They'll do things where you've got a zone or an inside run look at with somebody else coming this way or somebody going that way. They'll do quick pitches. They'll do, they'll do little orbit motion. They'll do speed option. They'll do all these different things that you got to be really disciplined as a linebacker. And a lot of it's geared towards, okay, you've got a kid that's not a great thrower. He's a pretty good athlete. He's a pretty tough runner. And when he gets his legs going as a runner and as a scrambler, that's when the offense looks pretty good. And all of a sudden, you're worried about him. And all of a sudden, Micah Ford is bouncing an inside zone out against Stanford because the linebackers of Stanford are just keying in on Ashton Daniels, and they're not focused on Micah Ford. And then boom, he bounces an outside zone run or an inside zone run. He bounces outside for a 20-yard gain. It's actually happened. Yeah. They get outside on an outside zone against Clemson. Why? Because the safeties and the linebackers were still looking at Ashton Daniels. So you've got to be able to contain him, in my opinion, in this game as a scrambler and as a runner, Ryan, because if Ashton Daniels can't get going with his legs, this offense really and Trevor, you and I talked about this. I'm gonna get Ryan's thoughts on this. If he can't get going with his legs, this offense has no chance if they're going to win, it's going to be like it was 2 years ago. It's going to be some 16-14 type of game because the Notre Dame offense didn't show up. That's really their only hope in this game of consistently moving the ball and putting points on the board is you're having trouble containing Ashton Daniels.
He's their leading rusher despite missing a football game, right? So, like, obviously they depend on his legs a whole lot in that offense. And, I mean, people don't remember this, but 2 years ago, before he was the starter, when he was a true freshman, he was basically Justin Lamson at that point. Like, they brought him in as kind of a change of pace. You're going to run some quarterback power. You're going to do some read stuff. Like, you are basically the changeup at quarterback to Tanner McKee. And it worked. Like, he was pretty productive in that role overall.
Can I give you some context on that, Ryan? Because you talk about Justin Lamson. It is the role, but here's the difference. Yep. Justin Lamson this year is averaging 1.1 yards per carry. It's a little bit skewed because of short yardage runs and sacks last week. But last year, Justin Lamson was their leading rusher, 334 yards, 2.8 yards per carry. In 2022, in that same role, Ashton Daniels averaged 6.2 yards per carry with 3 touchdowns. So much more dynamic at it compared to what Justin Lamson's been. So you have that similar role. This guy doubled the other guy in yards per carry, which speaks to this kid's ability. And as you mentioned, this season, he's their leading rusher with 250 yards in only 4 games. He's averaging 62.5 yards rushing per game. He's averaging 5 yards a carry,
Right.
despite an offense that ranks very low in sacks allowed, which takes away some of those rushing numbers.
And their offensive line is not very good, right? So like having the quarterback that can run the football outside of Micah Ford and the Davis kid, the Chris Davis kid, and a couple of their other running backs, like I think it's very beneficial to making that offensive line look a little bit better because it's not a good unit overall. I mean, it's the ultimate cheat code, and like they lean into it when he's healthy. I mean, obviously he missed last game, but like he's not just running off of scrambles, like he's running quarterback power, he's running quarterback read, he's running quarterback. I mean, they even ran. I forget what game it was, but like they're running like quarterback sweep with him, right? To get him outside the numbers a little bit as well. So this is a legitimately good athlete. And I mean, there's some reps where he's breaking tackles, working the sideline. Like he's just not a fast, quick, like athlete. Like he is also a physically pretty strong kid as well. So I like a lot of what I see from Ashton Daniels because I really think that the pace of how he plays the game is very beneficial to this run game. And that's only going to open things up ultimately, right? Like Notre Dame's going to come out and they're going to probably try to stop this run game pretty heavily, right? Whether Michael Ford's playing or he's not playing, the key is going to be let's stop the Stanford run game because having Ashton Daniels just be a drop back passer and throw into these wide receivers outside of Alec Ayo Manor is not or Ayo Manor, excuse me. Like that's not the most beneficial thing of all time. So I really think that for me, how are you able to stress this quarterback run game and this run game in general? If you're able to stifle them and to make them a one-dimensional thing, that is going to be really beneficial for the Notre Dame defense. And that all starts with the quarterback run game, Trevor, because that is the part of the game that is going to make Micah Ford better. It's going to make Chris Davis better. They have to be able to run the football. If they are not able to run the football with the quarterback, I think that really limits how this offense functions.
I agree. It's going to be interesting to see how Al Golden forms around it because you and I both know what his mindset is around running or around run defense, right? We got to be good, but our goal isn't to be the best. So I think it's going to be an interesting dynamic because despite having Elikeo Minor, Stanford is not going to really challenge you vertically down the field just based on what we've seen throughout their first, 5 games so far this season. So I'm going to be really interested to see what Al Golden does. I'm not saying, we're going to see Notre Dame load the box with 8 guys to try to stop the run this week. Not by any means, because Ayo Manor is still a receiver who can hurt you over top if you're not disciplined and you're not looking out for it, right? So
absolutely.
I mean, Ashton Daniels is going to have to be person number 1 that you identify in the run game because calling a spade, they don't have a single running back to shoot with a rushing touchdown through 5 games. Ashton Daniels, despite missing a game, Ashton Daniels leads the team in carries and in yards. So going to be interested to see what he does there.
That's a funny stat. I didn't even notice that when I was looking over the box score. That's like Trevor, I don't know if you're a baseball fan, but I'm a Phillies fan. And I found out yesterday that Austin Hayes, who the Phillies traded for at the trade deadline, did not have a single walk in a Philly uniform since getting traded at the trade deadline through the entire second half of the season and the playoffs. Like, how is that physically possible? And that's kind of how I feel about that statistic.
Nuts.
It's crazy.
Nuts.
Absolutely crazy. One thing I know about Troy Taylor, too, as we kind of work through a little bit more of this offense, is he is very diverse in alignments. He's a guy that you're going to see 11 personnel. You're going to see 12 personnel. You're going to see motions. You're going to see trades. You're going to see play action. We already talked about the run game with Daniels, Ashton Daniels, where it's not going to look the same all the time. There's going to be quarterback power. There's going to be read. There's going to be different looks up front. You're going to see pullers at times. They are going to try to confuse you ultimately. They are going to do that. And one interesting tidbit I would say, or just thing to work through if you're Notre Dame defense, is while the linebackers have all had just incredible moments this year. Like Drake Bowen's had some huge flashes. Kingston Viliamoasa has had some huge flashes. Jay Nosbury. Like, I feel like all these linebackers have had big moments, Brian. But like the big thing that I would say is that this is the perfect team, a Troy Taylor-led offense that is going to try to hurt your eye discipline. They're going to try to get you in bad spots. And if you're Notre Dame second level, third level, just be in the right spot, man. Don't hurt yourself. No stupid things off of play action. No bad reads in the run game off of the read option, quarterback run game. be in the right spot, because at the end of the day, you are the more talented team who should be able to stifle this offensive unit if you are in the right spot and you don't hurt yourself.
Ryan, Trevor and I talked about this earlier in the week. Troy Taylor's a smart dude. He's going to watch film of Notre Dame. He's going to watch what Louisville did early last week to leverage the linebackers in the throwing game. He's going to watch what Northern Illinois did with motion out of the backfield and bringing the jet sweep look with the wheel from your running back and things like that. And he's going to say these are really talented athletic linebackers, but they're young and they're going to make mistakes. I mean, even last week, as well as Kingston played, he had 2 huge mistakes, getting beat on the seam route, and then, of course, biting on an inside zone read where the quarterback takes it out the back door for a big gain. And he's going to say, okay, I need to stress those guys. I need to go after those guys and get them thinking, because if I let them play a downhill game, we're in trouble. But we're going to get those guys. We're going to slow those guys down as much as we can, Ryan. That's a great point. And it's the only hope Stanford really has, because it's like, look, guys, there's not a defense or an offense in America that if Notre Dame is playing their game is just going to consistently move the ball up and down the field in this defense. You're going to have to chunk play it. This is especially true for a team like Stanford. And the way that you chunk play it is, I mean, it's real simple, guys. You've got to create some big play opportunities. And if the way that you're best going to do that against Notre Dame is to get them to make mistakes. That's what you may have, Alec Ayomanor make a play or two against someone where he makes a great one-on-one, but he's not going to do that enough to be able to go out there and score. Like, he's not going to do to Notre Dame what he did to Travis Hunter a couple years ago, right? Who was coming off of being out for a month. And they said, okay, I know he's been hurt and out for a month, but let's have him play 100 snaps in his first game back, right? I mean, Notre Dame's not going to do that. So you're going to have to create consistently chunk plays. And the way to do that is to get Notre Dame to play undisciplined football, so if Notre Dame, just like to your point, Ryan, just plays your game, just know your assignment, know your read key, don't get caught up in all the fluff. It's almost kind of like, I mean, Ryan, honestly, it's almost going to be mentally setting you up to play Navy in a couple weeks, which is, look, this is your read key. Stick to your read key. Don't worry about all this other stuff going on. If your read key is this guy, then you play that guy, and then somebody else is going to count for that guy. Much different launching points, much different looks, but same philosophy of attacking this. I think it's going to be a good opportunity for them to do that.
We also hear all the time that Notre Dame is this team's Super Bowl, and there is this weird feel, I think, between both sides where I mean, there's a little bit of a rivalry here, quote unquote, because Notre Dame has been playing Stanford every single year, right? And they have a lot of values from the academic perspective. And I think Stanford on the other side, because we always think about Notre Dame's perspective of what a rival is. Stanford, I guarantee this is a game that they have on their schedule of if there's a time to pull out a trick play, if there's a time to do something a little bit out of the norm of what our offensive structure is, it's this game, right? So, I'm not saying they're going to pull out a double reverse pass or anything crazy like that, but I would not be shocked if there was something in the arsenal, something in the holster this week that they've been holding until this week, because this is a game that Stanford's going to come ready to play. I mean, I think we can't discount that. Yes, they're not a great football team. Notre Dame should win convincingly, but overall, this is a team that they view you as a little bit of a rival, and they're going to come and hopefully try to defeat you. That's what they're going to try to do ultimately, right? So whether it's some type of trickeration or if it's a wrinkle in their offense, they're going to pull out something in this game that I think Notre Dame has not seen on film, because this is a game that they've been waiting for.
I agree. I was going to bring that up too, because if you go back through and you look at the games where Notre Dame has struggled against Northern Illinois, against Miami of Ohio, there were big plays that the opposing team made early in the game. And Notre Dame has been a team on offense that shows once there is some adversity, once there is a little bit of, this wasn't a part of the plan, the team starts to sputter a little bit. Right against Northern Illinois, case could be made that they never recovered from that long 80-yard touchdown that Ontario Brown had. And against Miami of Ohio, I think there was a fumbled kickoff or an early fumble turnover in the start of the game. And then against Louisville, the offense did a good job rebounding from the early mistake. But the second that Riley Leonard got a little banged up and Jadarian Price fumbled the football, the team just wasn't the same after that, right? So yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think Stanford looks to try to do something with misdirection or try to hit a big play really early.
You'd have to be a fool not to do that.
Right.
And Troy Taylor's not a fool. He didn't get here because he's a fool.
Hey man, if things don't work out for Troy Taylor, and obviously I hope Mike Denbrock's here as long as possible, but if it doesn't work out for Troy Taylor and he ever wants to come be an offensive coordinator someday, I'm open to it, man. That guy's got a nice scheme. I like his scheme a lot.
Last one, guys, and this is a key one here too. This is a team that does not protect the football very well. Stanford ranks 97th in the country in lost turnovers, which, when you consider the fact that they've only played 5 games, is not good. They've thrown 7 interceptions in 5 games. As good as Ashton Daniels is as a runner, he's not much of a thrower. He's got more interceptions so far this season than touchdowns. He'll hit some big plays, but he's just not if he's playing in the National Football League, it's at another position. It's not a quarterback. Very different quarterback than the kid that they had 2 years ago that led them to a victory over Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And so but here's the thing. They've only lost 2 fumbles, fellas, but they rank 99th in the country in fumbles, like balls that hit the ground. They've had 9
7,
balls,
right?
9 that have hit the ground. They've lost 2. So the last key is this: get the ball. I mean, you want to put this team away early. The offense has got to do their thing and all that, but get the ball. They're, if you're aggressive, and what does that mean? Okay, Trevor, number one, obviously when the ball's on the ground, it's thrown up, you go get it. That's the simple part. But part of get the ball is do things to then force them into those situations. Don't sit back and wait. Be aggressive. Shoot gaps. Do what you do. Come out playing fast, hitting hard. This quarterback's got a long delivery, and he's not a great decision maker. Drive on the ball. Put it up in the air. Make those type of plays. Defensive linemen, they're going to throw a lot of quick game. Get your hands up, right? Run game-wise, put them in some bad situations where you get some early down stops that force them to be in obvious throwing downs, because you know what? You're going to get a chance to get the ball. So there should be, if Notre Dame plays hard in this game, if this defense is locked in and focused, there will be chances for them to get the football. And they're going to need to, and that's how you really bury this team. Yes, you make your stops, but give your offense a short field. Give your offense, hey, you know what? You guys just got on them. We're going to get the ball back and make their defense go right back on the field. Those are all parts of it, guys. The ball will get put up in positions. If you play hard and you play well, the ball will get put in positions where you can get it, and now it's up to you. Go get it. That's my final key on defense for Notre Dame.
Well, it's really great that Notre Dame is so good at scooping up fumbles. It's really good that is part of their strengths, obviously in jest there. But Notre Dame has obviously been increasingly better the last couple of years, especially of creating turnovers in the passing game off of interceptions. So, this kid has thrown 6 interceptions himself in 4 games. They've thrown 7 as a team so far, and the 2 lost fumbles. I mean, they were going to – I actually think – and we were talking about this a little bit, Brian, before the show, is that I actually don't hate this offense in the sense of I think they can move the ball. Like, Stanford can move the ball pretty well. It's just they shoot themselves in the foot so often, man. It's just like missed opportunity, fumble, interception. Like, they just shoot themselves in the foot constantly. Notre Dame has become, again, increasingly better at forcing turnovers the last couple of years. So when they put an opportunity to put a ball out there, Notre Dame needs to capitalize, especially when your offense has been so up and down. If you're Notre Dame, giving them short fields is so advantageous to helping the other side of the football as well. So yes, when the ball is there to make a play, Christian Gray, I don't know if you want to stick him on the hands this week, man. Like, I don't know what you got to do, brother, but a couple more turnovers would be great.
Yeah.
Apparently, the lost fumbles, Trevor's my fault, because I haven't spoke on it all season until the Louisville game when they had a fumble. Louisville had fumbled the kickoff, and Notre Dame didn't fall on it. Louisville takes over inside their own 10, and I looked at Vince and I said, man, this team does not know how to recover a fumble. Very next play, Leonard Moore comes from behind on Tyler Shuck, knocks the ball out. Jaden Osbury recovers it. So what I'm going to do, it was a great play. Yes, and great hustle by Jaden Osbury as well. So before every series, I'm going to look over at Sean Stiers, because Vince won't be at the game this weekend because his son's got a recruiting visit this weekend. And I'm going to look over at him and say, this team does not know how to recover fumbles, and just see if I can kind of keep that good mojo working here for the Notre Dame defense. Any last keys for the defense, fellas, before we get going?
I just think that last one is the biggest key for me, because again, I think there's going to be moments where your Notre Dame fans could be a little bit frustrated defensively, not in that they're giving up these huge plays, but it's just like, oh man, Stanford's like getting a couple first downs here, right, in this drive. And then there's going to be a play where Ashton Daniels puts the ball in harm's way. There's going to be a fumble, whatever it is. And Notre Dame needs to capitalize on those types of plays because they've been a little bit bend or don't break in certain games this year, which is fine as long as when that breaking point happens, you capitalize and you force a turnover or you force a big stop, right? So this is a team that if you shut them down early, it's going to be very demoralizing to them, especially when like Ashton Daniels was apparently good to go last week if they needed him to go, but they didn't want to force him back into action. I expect him to be pretty close to 100% in this football game overall as a player. So he's dangerous. Alec Manor is dangerous if you let them be dangerous. So when there is a play out there, Notre Dame needs to make it and stifle this team as far as being a cohesive unit. Occasional big play is cool or whatever, but like we always talk about sustainability. If Stanford can't consistently move the ball because they're putting the ball in harm's way, then that obviously lends to Notre Dame's favor.
By the way, he's thrown 5 picks in his last 2 games. Daniels has.
Yep.
He threw 3 against Stanford and 2 against Syracuse, and then they had 2 more turnovers this past weekend in the loss to Virginia Tech. So, Trevor,
at least they finally beat Sacramento State, man. They got that monkey off the back.
Yeah. Any last keys to think that you're focused on defense, Trevor?
Yeah, this one's a little bit more minute. Ryan kind of touched on it a little bit, but it was Notre Dame has kind of had that bend but don't break mentality. And for me, some of that goes into perform well on second down, please. I think Notre Dame does a relatively decent job of getting off the field on third down. Just this is more eye test, but there are so many times where I see it, Notre Dame gets a good stop on first down. It's 2nd and 9, and then before you know it, it's 3rd and 2 because there's just not a chunk play per se, but it gets them into 3rd and manageable from time to time. So a little bit smaller, but I think just being consistent 1st through 3rd down is going to be huge for them and not allowing, and getting comfortable with, hey, we just got a good stop on first down. We can kind of take our foot off the gas for a second.
All right, fellas, that's going to do it for this segment of the show. We're going to do predictions next. But remember, folks, while you're here, while we transition into predictions, go ahead and hit that like button. You see it down there? There's that thumbs up sign. Hit the thumbs up sign, not the thumbs down sign, but the thumbs up sign. And make sure that you're subscribed to our channel.